Hello and welcome to the session on Interactionism. Interactionism is a theory in the philosophy of mind which holds that matter and mind, being distinct and independent, they exert causal effects on one another. As such, it is a type of dualism. It can be distinguished from competing dualist theories of epiphenomenalism, pre-established harmony, and occasionalism. Descartes' definition of mind and body is that he seems to be describing two mutually exclusive substances. If in every respect matter differs from mind, how are the two meant to interact? Descartes needs to explain this because, unlike other theories, which we will look at later, there is meant to be a causal interaction between the two substances. In other words, mind influences matter and vice versa. This is called interactionism. However, the difficulty here is how a material thing, our body, can be influenced by a non-material thing, our mind. By Descartes' definition, mind is immaterial, having no dimension, mass, etc. But then how can something without any physical effects influence a physical thing? According to current scientific thinking, physical objects are only affected by physical forces. Even if we think in terms of atoms, molecules, or particles, we are still talking about things with dimension and mass, however small. In this sense, the material world is a closed circuit of cause and effect. Descartes' response was to suggest that the two substances meet in a part of the brain called the pineal gland. His reasons for choosing this seems to have been that the gland is central and that it does not occur in animals. This latter fact was understood by Descartes as relating to the presence of a soul in humans and not in animals, whom he considered mere machines. However, modern research has also found a similar gland in mammals and lower vertebrates. Defining interactionism. Interactionism depends on the following thoughts. There are two sets of entities, one of which is a proper part of the other. The smaller set is that which physicalists intend to pick out when they gesture toward the set of physical things. The larger set is a set of all the entities that causally interact. Some entities that are members of both sets sometimes stand in causal relations with entities that are members only of the larger set, and the causal relations go both ways. A typical way for physicalists to attempt to articulate their view is by referring to what they take to be paradigm examples of physical entities or processes, and then to say that all the things or all the processes that are similar enough or very similar or relevantly similar or to those things or processes. What the physicalists are gesturing toward here is a comparative similarity relation of the form that B is more similar to A than A is to C, where 1. The supposition is that for any entity B known or to be discovered, that entity will be more similar to the paradigmatically physical entity or process A than A is to C, and where 2. C is a foil, that is the nearest miss there is for counting as physical. The first entity we should count as non-physical, going outward, gradually acquiring distance to the paradigmatic case. The problem is that no straightforward way to give content to this relation is immediately available. Some argue that there is no way at all to give content to the relation Crane and Mahler 1990. It appears, however, that interactionism is just as dependent on there being a way to give this relation content as is physicalism. If there really is no divide between the mental and the physical, as Crane and Mahler claim, interactionism comes out just as vacuously true as does physicalism. So it seems that skepticism about the similarity relation in question sits uncomfortably with an interactionist position, at least so long as the position portrays itself as a genuine alternative to physicalism. A more careful analysis reveals that there is no real problem for the interactionist here. First, notice that the position that no evidence as yet available excludes interactionism does not depend on there being a non-vacuous way of picking out the smaller of the two sets. An interactionist can piggyback on the expressions used by the physicalist and say that talk about the smaller set should be understood as talk about whichever set the physicalist is talking about, provided that the physicalist is talking about some determinate set at all. Claims about the smaller set then can be interpreted as being conditional. Another suspicion is that when the relation in question is cleared up, it will not deliver as small a set as the physicalist thinks it would. In other words, that there are surprises in store for a physicalist willing to clarify the similarity relation and see what science will tell us that it encompasses. Depending on the degree to which the suspicion is well founded, it may be that the set that the relation, when cleared up, actually points to those turn out to be the set of all and only the causally interactive entities. An interactionist stance toward that set would of course be false. That, however, does not entail that interactionism as a stance toward the set which today's physicalists think they gesture toward is false. It may well be that among the entities that surprise the physicalists of today by ending up within the set they were gesturing toward are all those that the interactionists of today wants to insist are part of the causal network. So the suspicion is that when we get a better grip of the similarity relation physicalists rely on without cashing out, we will see that it yields a surprisingly large set. It may not. The suspicion may turn out to be unfounded, and physicalists may look at the set, their similarity relation, in the end picks out with satisfaction, congratulating themselves on their foresight in loosely gesturing toward a relation that picks out exactly what they wanted. It may even turn out that the physicalists claim that the set is the set of all and only the causally interactive things is correct. Even that result is compatible with the view defended in this thesis. For the view defended here is merely that have insufficient evidence to assert this conclusion yet. Dualism is often taken to be a claim about the makeup of ultimate reality as revealed by ultimate science. The dualist claim, it is said, is the claim that we shall ultimately find that reality is made up of two fundamentally different kinds of things, the mental and the physical. John Bigelow argues that reflection on the dualist intuition reveals that dualism is not best understood as a position about ultimate reality. Dualism is rather a position about the difference between the science of the day and the science believed to be a plausible candidate for one that can account for the mind. Understood in this way, the proper question to ask is not whether someone is or is not a dualist, but how much of a dualist they are. On this view, a defense of interactionism does not commit one to view about a certain makeup of reality as it will ultimately be revealed by a perfect science. Interactionism only commits one to a claim about how different from today's science a science would have to be a plausible candidate for one that can account for the mind. There is an excess of positions to be had. John Bigelow suggests that we may systematically categorize them in terms of reference to various upheavals in the history of science. This explains how an interactionist can allow for the possibility that the similarity relation the physicalists are gesturing toward may actually turn out to yield the set of all and only the causally interactive things. All the interactionists should insist on is that if it does, then the set it yields will contain elements which it is surprising to physicalists that it does contain. How surprising and how many such elements there would have to be is again a question of how much of a dualist the interactionist is. If there are no surprising elements in the set, interactionism is false. What this thesis argues is that we cannot yet ascertain that is how it will turn out. Interactionism depends on there being two sets of entities, one a proper part of the other, and the smaller being that which physicalists intend to pick out when they gesture toward a set of physical things. By presuming to be able to talk about these matters at all, obviously presuming that some not too far off ideas of which set the physicalist intends to refer to, it is also be mistaken about the degree to which physicalists will be surprised by the contents of the set of all causally interactive entities. The physicalists may be mistaken too. The set of things picked out by the relation they gesture toward when they talk about relevant similarity and difference and other things in that vein may be larger than what they expected. Our reference is parasitic on what physicalists refer to. If the physicalists are mistaken about the contents of the smaller set, there will be some elements of that set whose inclusion will be surprising to physicalists. Clearly, the mistake can be small or large. There may be large or small surprises in store for the physicalist. As the mistake gets larger, there will be a point such that it makes the interactionist claim defined parasitically mistaken too. It should be emphasized, however, that mistake would be entirely unthreatening to the interactionist. If the account John Bigelow is correct, what really matters for the interactionist is that certain entities participate in the causal network of things. If it turns out that the physicalist agrees with that, those who were interactionists should generously allow those entities to be called physical, if the physicalist should so wish. Nothing much hinges on the label. A lot hinges on their inclusion in the causal network. Interactionists claim about some of the things they believe that physicalists wish to exclude from the causal network, that they belong in the causal network and not outside it. If physicalists find, to their surprise, that many more entities are picked out by the relation they gesture toward, the disagreement may be dissolved. If interactionists find that they were wrong in their assumption about the entities the physicalists wanted to exclude, no tear should be shed. Mind-body interactionism. It seems natural to speak of physical occurrences and mental processes interacting. For instance, I step barefoot on a tack. Unless my foot is asleep, I will feel a pain where the tack has entered. The tack is logically distinct from the sensation of pain caused by stepping on it. Stepping on the tack precedes the feeling of pain. It happens regularly and predictably. Is there something philosophically wrong about speaking this way? Going in the other direction, imagine waiting for your beloved at the station. The whistle of the approaching train makes your heart go pit-a-pat in anticipation. Our thoughts, desires, and feelings are regularly followed in time by changes in body chemistry and neural activities. We can learn to predict what effects having certain thoughts will have on our bodies. Imagine yourself as a teenager climbing a steep switchback trail, rising over 4,000 feet. Trying to keep up with the other backpackers, you began to get out of breath. Your heart raced, and you started to feel dizzy. A friend advised you to listen to your body and find a rhythm of walking that suited you. This turned out to be slow but steady. It was told to count your steps over and over, 1 to 4, in a minute that brought your heart rate down and calmed your breathing. This was good advice. Your thoughts about hiking changed, and so did your body's response to the task. From a common sense point of view, there is nothing wrong with talking about physical events causing mental events or vice versa. Philosophically, however, The theory that mind and body interact is difficult to maintain. One reason may be that the problem arose in the context of Descartes' dualism. Given his metaphysical position, it is hard to see how there can be any interaction between mind and body, since they do not share any properties. Descartes' own solution is hard to accept, since it requires occult entities called animal spirits that somehow run messages from the mind to the body and the other way around. However, speaking about mind-body interactions, the way we do seems most apt in the examples. Does using the language of mind-body interactions require a commitment to a metaphysical dualism of substance between mind and body? Surely not. When we speak of mind and body, we are not speaking of two separate things. There is only one thing that is in question. How then can there be mind-body interaction if mind and body are really one? There is a problem here. If mind and body are one, then it is misleading to speak of them interacting as if they were different things. There may in fact be no interactions on some metaphysical levels, but it is difficult, if not impossible, to describe in any other way the ordinary causes of what we pre-reflectively call mind-body interactions. It is sufficient for our purpose to remain at the level of phenomenological description. Looking at how we experience the world, it seems that philosophical identity theorizes of mind and body makes it harder to say what we want about common appearances of mind-body interactions. It would be so much easier to square identity theories with our experience if we were not inherently temporal beings living through a sequence of time. In this contingency, we find the mind-body distinction useful to us in a rough and ready way. This is all we need to register the patterns of mind-body interactions that commonly appear to occur in life. We can learn from experience which patterns to cultivate and which to avoid. If you drink too much, you will get a hangover. If you think too long about a personal insult, your heart rate will increase and nasty chemicals will be injected into your body. The mind-body distinction is thought constituted and not a distinction in reality. However, we use the distinction because we find ourselves in a situation where mental processes precede bodily processes and vice versa. We find it useful to distinguish things from consciousness of things. Experience teaches us the connections. So in conclusion, we do not have to feel philosophically embarrassed to speak loosely of mind-body interactions. On the contrary, it is for those who hold that mind-body interactions are either senseless or impossible to explain why it appears that mind-body interactions happen all the time. Causal interactionism. The nature of the union of mind and body is causal. There is a two-way interaction. When I place my hand on a hot plate, my hand causes my mind to have the thought, pain. Meanwhile, my mind causes my hand to pull away from the hot plate and put ice on it or whatever. Descartes says that the point of causal interaction is the pineal gland, which is between the two hemispheres of the brain. A certain very small gland situated in the middle of the brain's substance and above the passage through which the spirits in the brain's anterior cavities communicate with those the posterior cavities. Very fine particles of matter, animal spirits, flow underneath the pineal gland. Somehow these animal spirits imprint an image on the pineal gland. What the mind can do, apparently, is inspect this image and through the pineal gland, which functions a bit like a weather vane, vacillate these particles this way or that way. This changes the direction of the flow of particles. This has the result of making the body do this or that. Descartes does not explain how it is that a mind, an immaterial substance, not in space or time, can influence a body in this way. Descartes does not explain why it is that a mind can only affect one body and not any other body. Descartes does not explain why the mind cannot causally interact with other minds but only with one body, whereas the body can causally interact with other bodies. He does accept that God, an infinite mind or infinite thinking substance, can causally interact with A, all other minds, and B, all bodies, if he so wishes. But he has no explanation for why only God can do this. What is called psychophysical causation is left unexplained. However, what Descartes argues is that we experience mind-body causal interaction at every moment. When we are injured, we feel pain. When we want to do something, our body moves. It is an ordinary fact of life. Since it occurs, it is of course possible for it to occur. His argument might be as follows. 1. A mind and a body are distinct substances. 2. I am a mind. 3. I have a body. 4. I experience the thoughts of my mind causing the movements of my body. 5. I experience the movements of my body causing the thoughts of my mind. So my mind and my body are distinct substances that causally interact. If this argument is valid, then it remains to determine whether it is sound, that is, whether all of the premises are true. It is the conclusion reached in the argument for the distinction between mind and body. That argument, however, may be understood as merely hypothetical. It says that minds and bodies are distinct, without saying that there are any minds. Let us now summarize the session. The paradox of justified phenomenal judgment does not arise for an interactionist, dualist account of the mind. This is not surprising, for material in allowing the paradox to arise for the epiphenomenalist is the causal inefficacy of phenomenal experience. The interactionist, in contrast, can subscribe to a widely accepted and intuitively very plausible theory of justification, the causal theory. According to the causal theory of justification, it is a condition of a belief being justified that the object of the belief figures appropriately in the causal history of that belief. An interactionist can maintain that a causal theory of justification is appropriate in general and in particular that it applies to judgments about phenomenal experience. Then our judgments about phenomenal experience are justified because they are at least partly caused by the experiences they are about, and the paradox fails to arise. Interactionism is better aligned with common sense because it takes phenomenal experience to be causally efficacious. Given the intuitive possibility of the causal account of justification, the solution to the paradox outlined here constitutes a natural choice for the interactionist, a suitable continuation of the alignment with intuition and common sense. Now, you can try to answer the questions given here. Explain the concept of interactionism. Describe the development of interactionism in different stages of philosophy. Illustrate the views of Descartes on interactionism. Define causal theory. Enlist the views of Descartes on our experience on mind-body causal interaction. What are the arguments for the distinction between mind and body according to interactionism? Describe the dualist claims of John Bigelow. Hope that these reference books may help you for further understanding. What Am I? Descartes and the Mind-Body Problem, written by J. Almong in 2001, published by Oxford University Press, Oxford. A Materialist Theory of the Mind, written by D. M. Armstrong in 1968, published by Routledge and Kagan Paul. Does interactionism violate a law of classical physics? Written by E. W. Averill and B. Keating in 1981, The Concept of a Person and Other Essays, written by A.J. Iyer in 1963, published by Macmillan, London. In Defense of Dualism, in Dimensions of Mind, written by C. Ducasse in 1961, published by Collier, New York. Cartesian Dualism, in Persons, Human and Divine, written by J. Hawthorne in 2007, published by Oxford University Press, Oxford. Hope this session was beneficial for you. We can meet again with another topic. Till then, goodbye.